Hello, I am here today to go through the Kearney Rental Pros lease with you. This is designed to help you to understand what you are signing and being prepared to be a tenant for us over the next 12 months. If you have any questions at the end of this video, you'll be meeting with a property manager to be able to have those questions answered. So let's jump in. The first thing that you need to notate is that your name is correct and spelled correctly, and all tenants are listed that will be living at the property. The next section states that we are, Kearney Rental Pros, the landlord. So throughout the lease, you'll see tenant, that's you, and landlord, that's Kearney Rental Pros. We're not the owners of these properties, we're just the third-party property management company. The next section is actually detailing which property it is that you are renting. In this case, it's 1234 Nebraska Lane in Kearney, Nebraska. What's also determined in this section is what personal property is being rented to you. So whether it's a stove and refrigerator, or whether your unit actually has washer and dryer or microwave, all those items are going to be listed here. We're going to jump into how long the lease is. Most leases, unless special accommodations have been made, are 12-month leases. It'll start today, the day that you're signing, and it's going to end on the last day of the month, 12 months from now. Here is clearly stated what your rent is. So in this case, the rent is $400. Rent is due on the 1st. And as we cover down here later on, it's late after the 3rd. You are able to pay by money order, cashier's check, bank check, or you can also use our third-party service through our website, which we'll go over that form later in the end, that you're able to pay by ATM card or credit card. We do not accept cash. If you did bring cash today with you for your security deposit and rent, we will make those special accommodations, but moving forward, we do not accept cash. This section here states where you can mail your rent to if you are actually sending rent via the mail. Do make sure that you give plenty of time for that to get through the mail system. Things can take 7 to 10 days, and rent is late after that 3rd day. We also have a drop box outside in the parking lot of the office. It's on the mail pedestal. It clearly states Kearney Rental Pros, and rents can be dropped off in that box as well. Always make sure that when you are writing your check, if your property address is not on the check, that you put that in the memo field and clearly state what property that rent is for. When we get 720 units worth of rent and it doesn't have an address, it's pretty hard to know whose rent that is. You will be also talking about a prorated rent section. If you're not signing on the actual 1st, your rent will be prorated for the number of days of the month so that you get your rent cycle back to the 1st of the month. Rent can only increase following all state statutes and at the time in which renewal comes up. So what's really nice is by being in a 12-month lease, you can guarantee that your rent is locked in for those 12 months. If for any reason you should have a stop payment, whether that's a non-sufficient fund, a banking error, you used the wrong account, signed into the account wrong, anything that causes our bank to reject that payment, you are going to receive a $30 insufficient fund fee or bank fee, because that's what we are charged, and so that is going to be on your part. Again, here it states that rent is due on the 1st and late after the 3rd day of the month, and that is a $50 late fee. You're getting the unit basically as is. To the best of our knowledge, we have no other repairs that need to be completed at this time in the unit. If you do move in and find something that is not operational, then we do ask that you fill out that work order online or call into the office. You'll be getting a move-in sheet, which you're going to see a little bit later on. That's where you're going to put the condition of the property, not things that are broken, but the condition. And that's used for us when we move you back out. We use that sheet for that, for damages. If for any reason you have minor children living on the property, here is where I'm going to need you to put their names and ages, and hopefully that number is correct in the box of how many children are there. We can get that corrected. That's page 1, and you're going to initial at the bottom. One thing to be very clear about is that we have a 0 tolerance for any illegal activity, parties, noise violations, anything like that. This section states that very clearly. State law does give me a 5-day notice for you to vacate a property if any illegal activity is even cited. Does not mean found guilty. So if you have drugs, if you have I don't know, minor in possession, any of those types of things, we can terminate your lease within 5 days and you'll have to be out of the property. The security deposit here, most of you have already paid that ahead of time, but if it is getting cleared up today, it's going to state the dollar amount, which will be equal to 1 month's rent. Make sure if you are dropping off the keys on the weekends or the evenings that you are leaving them labeled and in the drop box. Do not just drop unlabeled keys into that box. The things that will be automatically taken out of your security deposit is the carpet cleaning and cleaning if it's not sufficient, and then any damages beyond normal wear and tear. If there's any back rent or utility fees or anything like that, that can also be removed from the security deposit if need be. You will initial here that you understand that the carpets will be professionally cleaned. Do not go out and rent a rug doctor or have your mom's steam cleaner come through and do that. We ask you not to do that as your permanent carpet cleaning, because it tends to leave a lot more residue in the carpets, and we will still have it professionally cleaned. Now, if you need to do that during the time frame that you're living there, feel free, but just understand that automatically that carpet cleaning will be taken out of your security deposit. And this talks about how you get it back. The best part of the month for me is when we're able to write security checks back to our tenants. That means you've taken care of the property and the owner's property has been secured. So if you're not getting your security deposit back, that's on you because you've not been maintaining the property. This expectation is that at the end of your lease, whether it's 1 year from now or 3 years from now, that you will provide a 30-day written notice. Right here is where that clearly states it must be in writing. You must provide to us your forwarding address, and you must have fulfilled all the terms of your lease, leaving the unit in the same good condition that you received it in. The next section is your application for lease, which you have already completed. If for any reason you have lied on that application, it can also be grounds for termination. The vehicle parking, be very clear with the property manager at the end of the lease signing what the requirements are for parking at your particular location. If it is a standalone property, it's usually pretty self-explanatory, but if you're in a complex, there might be parking passes, there might be reserved parking. So be very clear with that. You may not store recreational vehicles at our properties in any of those situations. Possession, basically today you will be providing us with your renter's insurance. Your utilities have been placed into your name, and paying your rent and any earnest deposit or security deposit has not been made, and we will be giving you the property today. The insurance, it will be your responsibility to provide us a copy of your renter's insurance. It's called a deck page or the declaration page. If you have not gotten that from your insurance person, then that will need to be sent over to us before we provide you your lease today. And this really protects you in a couple different ways. Number one, if you should be the cause of some major damage in a unit, you're cooking and you catch the kitchen on fire, which has happened in a tenant situation, then your insurance will cover that liability that you have created. The owner's insurance would not cover that. If your neighbor's cooking and they catch something on fire and your unit should be damaged or your personal property damaged, then your renter's insurance would help protect you on that as well. So we do that for multiple reasons. One, to protect the owner's interest, and also to protect your interest. Again, you're going to initial on the bottom of the page. This next section clearly states what your responsibility is in regards to utilities. Not all units have separate utilities, and some do. So your boxes will be checked. Make sure that you're clear on what your responsibility is. You may not alter the property. You may not relock the doors and change the keys. You may not color the walls pink, purple, orange. All of those things are considered alterations, and you are not allowed to do that without having dialogue with our office. Assigning or subletting, this is also not allowed. Anything to do with changing the lease or who the tenants are must run through our office. There could be potential fees associated with that, but we need to know at all times which adults are living on the property. The landlord's responsibilities. This is clearly stated by Tenant-Landlord Act, what we are responsible for in addition to many things already in the lease. But specifically, we must comply with all minimum housing codes. So basically, we have placed smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, those type of things for safety and security for the tenants. We need to make all repairs in a timely fashion. Now this can be subjective a little bit, but timely fashion, depending on what the item could be something that needs immediate attention and we have to send someone right away, or if it's something like the bedroom doorknob fell off, that might take a couple days. So please keep in mind what you may feel as being urgent in all reality may be something that can take a day or so. We have to keep common areas clean, and that would be on apartment complexes. We have to maintain all operating systems in good working order, which means basically the heating, the air conditioning, the water, those type of things. Provide garbage receptacles. So if you live in an apartment complex, there will be designated trash dumpsters. If you're renting a duplex or a single standing home, you may be responsible for getting that through the city of Kearney or one of the villages, depending on which community you're living in. And supply running water. Now, if you have water that is provided by the landlord, that means we have to pay the bill. We can't just shut the water off and decide not to pay the bill. But if the city of Kearney is doing major work and they shut the water off, that's out of our control. If you have to be responsible for the water yourself, then that's going to fall under your responsibility. In reciprocation, the tenant has essentially the exact same responsibilities. You must comply with all city, village, community codes. You must keep your area of the premises clean. So if you live in a shared community, you need to not have messes outside your door and the hallways leading up to your unit, but you're also responsible for keeping your yard and things like that if you're in a standalone property. You'd have to dispose of your trash. And if you have large furniture or large personal items that don't fit in a normal trash can, it is your responsibility to dispose of those in a proper location and not just leave it for our maintenance to pick up. Keep your plumbing fixtures in good operating order, as well as all electrical and mechanicals. So that means you need to be changing your furnace filters on a regular basis. You need to be not putting things down the garbage disposal that shouldn't go down. Now, keep in mind, garbage disposals were created by plumbers for service calls. I truly believe that, because potato skins, eggshells, carrot skins, pasta, rice, anything like that that's sticky and gummy, even eggshells is our big one, even though that they're sharp, those things will plug up garbage disposals. So we do request that you put very little down your garbage disposal, and if you should plug up the sink, keep in mind that is your responsibility as a tenant. Use everything within normal circumstances. You cannot turn your air conditioning on when it's not above the 70-degree range, essentially early in the spring. If it's still staying cool in the evenings, air conditioners are not designed to work if they are not in a constant 54-degree or above situation. Same, you can't be running your furnace in the middle of July. That's very hard on the mechanicals. And if damage is caused to the unit, that could potentially be your responsibility. Do not deliberately destroy, neglect, deface, or cause problems on our properties. Conduct yourself within reason and be mindful of your neighbors. Abide by all bylaws, covenants, anything to do with the city of Kearney, any of the communities that we rent in, and that you agree to be considerable of all these different things. And if you are not, you could be in breach of contract of your lease. Our properties are predominantly not pet friendly. We do have a few owners that we manage for that do allow for pets. So you would have known this already prior to coming into today, because the property would have been advertised as being pet friendly. If you are bringing a pet on, there's additional documentation and a pet lease that will be required to be signed. You will need to initial this, that you understand that your property is not pet friendly. Please do not bring in grandma's chihuahua that you're babysitting. Pet friendly means you can have pets. Not pet friendly doesn't mean you can babysit and have pets. And pets are not just dogs or cats. No llamas, no snakes, no ferrets, anything like that. You can have a goldfish or you can have a betta, but no 40-gallon fish tanks either, because if that should break, then there's a lot of damage with a 40-gallon fish tank. So keep in mind that pets are not just to the cute little fur babies. Quiet enjoyment has two pieces to it. That means you're not going to disrupt your neighbors and cause them not to enjoy their living. And as well, we will not be knocking on your door every day trying to get in and see what's going on. We're going to allow you to follow the rules, and if we have trouble with that and I show up, or one of the property managers, that's usually not a good thing. That means you're probably not following the rules. So just keep in mind that you are responsible for that. At the end of the lease, you must surrender the premises to us, and that's within 24 hours. You need to return the keys after vacating the property. That can be done by bringing them to the office or having them labeled and bringing them into the drop box. Do not leave keys in the unit unless you've had specific instructions to do so. Those need to be turned into our office so that we know that you have vacated the premises. We do have a right to access and inspect the property, but proper notice must be given with that. Proper notice can be an email, a text message, a phone call, or a notice on your door. If you do call in for a repair, that automatically gives us that permission to enter the unit. We're contingent upon, most of the time, outside vendors, and we want to get them to you as soon as possible, but it's always going to be on their schedule. So a key will be checked out to that repairman, and they will come and do that repair as soon as possible. But if we need to do a filter or HVAC inspection, if the owner's insurance wants to do some type of safety and security inspection, then you'll always be notified of those type of things. Termination and lease holdover. This is a big fancy word for month to month. Most of our owners do not allow a month to month. At the end of your lease, or prior to the end of your lease, you will receive some type of notification stating the renewal policy for that particular property. If for any reason you do not return that paperwork to us, your lease could potentially fall into that holdover, and we could charge up to 1.5 times the rent based on that. Most of the time there's a penalty fee. So those are just things that need to be discussed as the lease comes to an end. If you're going to be gone for an extended period of time and don't have someone checking on the unit, we ask, especially in the severe winter weather time or the spring during tornadoes, and also if you're in a standalone property, that you notify us of that, because if we should have some large weather event, we may need to go inspect and check the property to make sure windows haven't been broken if there was hail or wind. Also in the wintertime, we want to make sure furnaces are running if we should have a severe power outage or anything like that. We just want to protect that property, and we just appreciate that courtesy. Abandonment, this only really happens if you're a naughty tenant, and hopefully you won't be a naughty tenant. If for any reason you should abandon the property, after 7 days we are able to take possession of that property and re-enter the unit. Anything that's left behind then becomes ours. Please don't leave us your dirty tennis shoes. Take those with you, but flat screen TVs we really like if they're working. If the property should be damaged, whether it's by acts of God, Mother Nature, I think it even says in here something like, public enemies or rioters. Hopefully we don't have those in Kearney, Nebraska or in the area. But if anything should happen that those events would cause damage to the property, we do ask that you notify us immediately. If it is during business hours, just call the regular office. If it's after hours, still call that office number. We have an answering service that answers 24 hours a day, 365. So even if we have all 4 lines going on in our office and they're tied up, if it was a major emergency, the answering service will pick up. After the 4th ring, they will then notify us via cell phone or some other technology that we have a pressing emergency, and we will be addressing that. And that same on the evenings and weekends, we have someone on call to be able to respond to those emergencies. Now, remember, if your bedroom doorknob falls off at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's not an emergency. Do not call that in. You can go right into our website and fill out that work order. But if you have water, smoke, fire, no heat, and it's 13 below zero, those are the things that are really considered emergencies, and we need to respond to them right away. Air conditioning going out is not an emergency. It may feel hot, but by tenant landlord, that is not an emergency, and generally we will not be going out in those evenings or weekends for that, unless we are in a heat advisory situation. And unfortunately, we do not have repair people that go out on the evenings or weekends for appliances either. So those are items that you just need to turn in the work order, either calling it in during normal business hours or going onto the website and submitting it. But those are items in which we will address during normal business hours. We're going to hold each other harmless. That means no one has any intent to cause harm to you. If you're going up the stairs and you trip with carrying your groceries, that's called an accident. Disclaimer of security warranties. Essentially, we do not have any video cameras or any security equipment on the properties. We need to make sure that you're locking your doors, locking your windows, locking your vehicles. You have to make sure that you're keeping your own personal property safe. Default, these are the steps that the state of Nebraska allows us to take action if you should go into a default situation and not pay your rent in a timely fashion. And do keep in mind that we will aggressively seek any back rent or damages that are caused in this process as well. So if something should come up and you are having trouble with that, we just ask that you communicate. We should not have to get into this situation. There's lots of ways that we can work through these differences, but please know that we will take every action that law permits for us to collect and regain access to our property. Remedies are cumulative. That means all damages, utilities, anything like that can be put together in that situation. Notice of injury on the premises. Obviously, accidents happen, things happen. We do like to know if someone should fall on the property and hurt themselves, if you would at least give us a heads up and let us know that this occurred. It just helps with any insurance questions and things like that for all parties involved. We definitely want to be aware if there is a situation that needs to be remedied. Waiver, that basically means you're of 18 years of age and able to sign this, and you're waiving that you don't have an issue with signing the contract. Grounds for termination are explained in the contract. We do have the authority, and we are the contact for this particular owner, so any communications will go through us. So you can call in or mail in to that location. We also have emails for some of the staff that you're able to utilize as well. Again, at the bottom of the page, all parties are going to initial. Page 6, disclosure of our agency status. It's a big fancy word that basically declares that we are a third-party manager. We don't own these properties, and we are following the Real Estate Commission requirements on that. Time is of the essence. Basically, we want to get everything taken care of as quickly as possible. If for some reason the owner should change who the property management is, or if the property should be sold, there is a subordination clause that actually protects you as the tenant that states that the lease will go with the property. That way, if someone does decide to sell a property, your lease is still honored till the end of those terms by whoever the new ownership is. Eminent domain would be if the city of Kearney would, or one of the local villages that we manage for, would decide to take over that property. They would go through this process. It would take a very long time, and I've never seen that happen in all my years. The contract has paragraph headings. This is binding. We do and meet all reasonable accommodations under the Fair Housing Act. This entire agreement is included. You will receive a copy of it, and if for any reason the property does require the lead-based paint, that will be another document that you will sign at the time of this lease. Nebraska is the governing law. Severability is another big fancy legal word that gets into that if there is any incorrect statements, grammar issues, anything like that, they are still tied to the lease and can be addressed. Keep track of our additional provisions, because this is very important for most people to understand, that no pools, jacuzzis, or saunas can be put onto our properties, no parties. Smoking is an automatic forfeiture of your security deposit, and absolutely no open flames. Make sure you initial and date, just initial there. Also, no water beds, no pets. Don't leave hoses connected in the winter months. Some of this is just common sense, but make sure that you're very clear on what you're signing. You're going to sign and date and print your name, as well as the property manager. An addendum, this is your responsibility to maintain the property. The property is being delivered to you basically varmint free. We have no known issues with that. So if something should happen, because we do live in the Midwest, we do tend to have mice seasonally. We have spiders seasonally. We have mosquitoes, moths, anything like that. We strongly suggest also that if you are buying furniture used from any outside party, that you investigate it very carefully for any cockroaches or bed bugs. We see that that happens frequently with people bringing those into the units. And if the units are discovered that you are the source of that, you'll be responsible for treating all units tied to those type of issues. Initial and date. If NPPD is part of your services, this will be a form that you will be signing stating that for a non-traditional turn-off, we will be notified. This is one of your homework sheets that'll go home with you today. Your property has been provided with smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors if they are required. You will notate on this list all locations that they're at and sign and date that you are responsible for changing those batteries. We have put fresh either detectors in the unit or have provided fresh batteries in them, and you are responsible for changing them. So whether you change them every 6 months during the time changes, some type of trigger needs to happen. Also, we'll fill this out on how many keys are provided to you and whether you're responsible for the lawn and the snow. Do keep in mind that snow is also a third-party vendor, and we will be contingent upon those companies getting out and getting the properties cleared. If your job requires you to report, you will need to make your own accommodations, either with your own shovel or snow removal out of your drive to get you to your job if that is required. But it can take 24 to 48 hours for large events for that to be cleared. Initial and date at the bottom. Again, here is a list of all general rules. This is very important that you take the time to read this. None of our owners allow direct TV or satellite TV, so don't ask. They're not going to allow that to happen because every time a tenant changes, those companies want to mount some type of equipment on the property or around the property, and it becomes a big issue for those owners. So just keep in mind that we're going to provide as many of those services as we can, but direct and dish TV are not allowed. Anyways, you're going to read through all of this. We do not change your light bulbs, and we do not change the batteries during the time that you are living in the unit on your smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. If you have hoses on your property, it's very important that you remove those before the winter months, because if a pipe should freeze because you leave a hose connected, that can be and will be your charge. And if it should leak into the unit, that's also another item in which could be yours. Be very familiar with this. Again, you will initial at the bottom. We've provided you ahead of time, more than likely, which utilities need to be in your name, and those need to be put into your name as of today. But here's an additional sheet with all the different providers. Again, initial at the bottom. This is your tenant move-in sheet. This is where you're going to mention all those damages we talked about earlier. So if there's a scuff on the wall, a dent on the appliance, a stain on the carpet, you're going to go room by room and notate that. There's actually plenty of room on the back, so if you need to write any additional notes, feel free to do so. But if something is actually not working, that is where you need to fill out that work order online through our website or call it in. You will sign this and drop this off to the office. We ask this to be brought in between 7 to 10 days after your lease signing. This will go into your file, and this is what our maintenance team will use as a condition report from you at the time of move out. So if in the living room there's now a big giant grape juice stain on the carpet and that was not notated at the time of move-in, that is a damage that would be charged to you. This is your protection. If you do not turn this in, any damage that's found in the unit at move out will be your responsibility. You need to fill this out and get this turned in to us, along with your smoke detector sheet. You will be signing this utility addendum today, and this clearly states that if you have not already or do not complete within the next 24 hours getting the utilities into your name, and we have to bill you or follow up on this, you'll be automatically charged $50 as a convenience fee for us handling that. We've provided you with which companies you need to contact. Also, in certain months, we will actually turn off your utilities if you don't do this. So very important that those utilities have been transferred over. This is our resident web access. This allows you to sign into your account, see what your balance is on your account, and make payments through a third party, either with an ACH charge through your bank account, or you can use your ATM card or credit card. Do keep in mind that there are service fees associated with this, and it is a flat fee if you do the bank statement amount, approximately $3 to $4. But if you do utilize an ATM or credit card, it's going to be based upon the percentage that your company charges for those fees. So it could be up to 3 to 4% or even higher. So keep that in mind that those fees are there. You're given those alerts once you've signed this in. We do have a computer in the front office. We ask that you do this before you leave today. It's got your password numbers and all that, and you can get that set up so moving forward you don't even have to come into the office to make those rent payments. No excuse for being traveling or anything like that. We give you lots of opportunities to be able to get that rent paid on time. And that is essentially your lease. A few of you will have additional documents based on certain properties and based on locations and communities. We do want to be very clear with you that paying your rent on time is imperative, that you must report all damages through either our website or calling in, and that you are signing a document that states that you will fulfill this contract. So you have signed a 12-month lease. That means you will be in this property for at least 12 months. If anything changes on that, you need to communicate very clearly with the office, but understand owners are expecting the fulfillment of this contract. We look forward to having you as a tenant. I look forward to letting you have a great enjoyment in your home. And if you have any questions, remember, you always call the office.